Crazy Sea Stories.
The Light Beneath the Hood. The lantern's flame was nearly gone when Daniel stumbled upon the ruins. For days he had wandered through the northern forests, his rations dwindling, his mind gnawed by an ever-present dread that whispered behind every snapping branch. He should have turned back long ago, but the map, the cursed map, had promised answers. And answers were all he had left. The ruins appeared where no structure should have stood. A vast stone stairwell descending into the earth, choked with frost and moss. The carvings on the steps were sharp, deliberate, and cruelly intricate symbols that twisted Daniel's gaze until he felt as though the stone itself was moving beneath him. He hesitated, the final breath of his lantern flickering across his pale face. Behind him lay nothing but an endless expanse of dead trees. Before him, something ancient waited. Something that wanted him. Daniel descended. The gathering below. The stairwell seemed endless, but finally opened into a cavernous hall. The air was stagnant and damp, thick with the scent of rotting fabric and cold stone. His breath fogged the darkness before him, and then movement. Shadows detached themselves from the walls. Dozens, then hundreds of them. They were cloaked figures, their hoods concealing everything but faintly glowing eyes. Eyes that reflected no soul. Their presence smothered him, filling every corner of the chamber with a silence heavier than stone. Daniel's heart battered against his ribs. He was not alone. He had never been alone. The crowd parted as though obeying a silent command, revealing an altar in the center of the hall. Upon it sat a large chest of blackened wood, its seams glowing with a faint, unearthly light. The air around it shimmered, bending unnaturally, as if reality itself was being pulled inward. One of the hooded figures stepped forward. Unlike the rest, its face was partially visible. Gray flesh stretched thin, lips receded to reveal teeth that seemed too sharp, too long. It raised a hand, skeletal and trembling, and pointed at Daniel. "You," it rasped. The word was like stone dragged across metal. Daniel's throat tightened. His legs refused to obey him. He could not flee. The figure turned its gaze back to the chest, then to the crowd. The cloaked congregation leaned forward as one, their eyes glimmering in anticipation. The chest. The lead figure placed its hands upon the chest. Immediately the glow intensified, painting their withered fingers in sickly green light. "The offering comes," the figure whispered, its voice echoing through the cavern, though it barely spoke above a breath. The lid creaked open, slow and agonizing, and inside was light. Not ordinary light, but a searing, liquid radiance that seemed alive. It pulsed and writhed as though it had a heartbeat. Daniel staggered back, shielding his eyes, yet he could not look away. Within the glow he thought he saw shapes, human forms writhing, faces pressed against the inner. Daniel staggered back, shielding his eyes, yet he could not look away. Within the glow he thought he saw shapes, human forms writhing, faces pressed against the inner walls of the light, mouths open in eternal screams. He realized then that the chest was not a container at all. It was a prison. The figure reached into the glow, its flesh smoking and crackling, yet it did not cry out. Slowly, reverently, it drew forth something small, an object no larger than a fist. At first Daniel thought it was a jewel, crystalline and sharp-edged. But then it twitched. It was an eye. The figure held it high, and the crowd let out a soundless exhale, as though every breath in the room was drawn into that one object. The eye blinked, its iris a shifting spiral of colors that seemed to bore into Daniel's skull. And in that moment, he understood. The cult had been waiting for him. The choice. The lead figure's voice thundered suddenly, shaking the chamber. The eye seeks a host. The crowd chanted in unison, low and droning, "A host, a host, a host, a host, a host." Daniel shook his head violently. "No. I don't want this. I don't even know what this is." His voice cracked, pathetic against the overwhelming hum of the congregation. The figure lowered its arm, pointing the eye toward Daniel. The glow swelled, spilling across the chamber like a tide of fire. Daniel's vision blurred. He dropped to his knees, clutching his skull as screams that were not his own tore through his mind. He saw flashes, worlds burning, oceans boiling, cities crumbling into ash. He saw endless rows of the hooded figures, not just in this cavern, but in places beneath every nation, waiting in silence for this moment. The eye burned brighter. The transformation. Daniel tried to resist. He clawed at the stone floor, tearing his nails down to the bone as he fought the pull of the light, but the congregation closed in. They did not touch him, but their mere presence crushed him. He could feel them pressing into his thoughts, guiding him toward the inevitable. The figure placed the eye upon his chest. The pain was instant and indescribable. His ribs cracked outward as though invisible claws were prying him open. He screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the chanting. The eye sank into him, embedding itself in his flesh, fusing with his heart. The glow erupted, consuming him, burning away his humanity. He could feel his memories unraveling, his name dissolving into nothing. He tried to cling to a single thought, a single shred of who he was, but even that was stolen. The last thing Daniel saw before the darkness claimed him was the countless eyes of the congregation staring back, filled not with pity, but with triumph, the new host. The light dimmed, the chest closed. The lead figure stepped back. Lowering its hood, its withered face now bore a smile, hideous and wide. The crowd parted once more. And Daniel knew. The thing that had once been Daniel rose to its feet. Its eyes burned with the same sickly glow as the eye. Its mouth stretched open, releasing a sound that was not human, not even earthly. A shriek that made the cavern tremble. The congregation fell to their knees, bowing in reverence. The figure spoke again. The host is chosen. The cycle begins anew. And deep beneath the earth, in a chamber that should never have been found, Daniel was gone forever. His body nothing more than a vessel, his soul imprisoned within the endless light of the chest, screaming silently with the others who had come before. The cult had its prize, and the world above would never know what was coming.
Crazy Sea Stories. If you like these stories, subscribe for more. No one remembers when the fields turned quiet. The birds were the first to vanish. One morning their songs failed to greet the dawn, leaving the sky above Hollow's edge heavy with silence. No crows perched on the barn roof. No sparrows darted between the hedges. Even the insects seemed to have fled, leaving only the rustle of dry wheat in the windless air. We knew something was wrong. The old folk whispered of omens of plagues and pestilence, or worse, visitations from things not of this world. But we stayed. We were farmers. We had endured floods, drought, and sickness. The land had been in our blood for generations. No one thought this land would be our grave. It began at dusk, as all dark things do. The sky over the eastern field, the one we called God's Acre, rippled with strange light. Pale, cold beams broke through the cloud cover, bathing the fields in silver. Men and women gathered at the field's edge, drawn like moths to a flame. I stood among them, my wife Sarah beside me, her hand trembling in mine. Fear danced behind her eyes. We watched as Jonathan Marks, the blacksmith, stepped into the field. His head lolled back, his arms wide as if in rapture. The light thickened around him, becoming liquid, syrupy, clinging to his form like cobwebs. And then he began to rise. His feet lifted from the ground, boots swinging gently above the dry earth. His mouth hung open, but no sound escaped. Higher and higher he drifted, until his shape blurred against the heavens. Then Mary Blake followed, her thin frame weightless in the eldritch glow. Her nightdress fluttered in an unseen breeze as she spun slowly, face empty of thought. One by one, the villagers ascended, dozens of them, floating skyward as the light pulled them like a fisherman's net. Their bodies limp, their eyes vacant, they rose without resistance. Some screamed. Children clung to their mothers. Men fell to their knees, praying in desperation. But no one was spared. I held Sarah tight. So tight I felt her ribs beneath my grip, whispering to her to stay, to fight. Her breath came fast and shallow, her body shivering in my arms. But the light found her. Her gaze turned distant. Her trembling stopped. She stepped away from me, arms limp at her sides. No. Sarah, stay with me, I shouted, grabbing her wrist. But the force was stronger. Her feet lifted. I pulled, straining until the veins in my arms burned. But she slipped from my grasp like a ghost, her body rising into the void above. Her face turned to mine as she drifted upward. There was no fear there, only emptiness. The sky swallowed her. I fell to my knees, choking on grief. All around me, others were rising. Men, women, children, their bodies weightless, offered to the sky. I could only watch as they disappeared into the breach in the heavens, a great wound in the sky that oozed pale, putrid light. The last to rise was Father Grayson, the village priest. He wept as he prayed, clutching his crucifix until it snapped in his grasp. Then he too was taken, his screams fading into the cold void above, and then the light dimmed. The clouds closed, stitching shut the gash in the sky. Silence returned. I stood alone in the field, the last soul untouched, surrounded by empty homes and abandoned tools. The wheat bent under a dead wind, whispering secrets in a tongue I could not understand. The village was gone. For 3 days I wandered the fields, searching for signs of life. I shouted their names into the hollow air. No one answered. Only echoes returned, thin and mocking. At night, the dreams came. I saw their faces, pale and empty, floating in endless dark. Their mouths opened wide, whispering secrets I could almost understand. Secrets of the thing that called them, the hunger above, the silent God, the feeder in the sky. They spoke of endless drifting, of being devoured by shadow, of voices that pierced the soul and left nothing behind. I awoke each morning with my body lighter, my feet barely touching the ground. I knew it was calling me. The pull grew stronger with each passing night. I could feel its cold fingers brushing my skin, caressing my thoughts, promising release from the burden of flesh, promising reunion. But I knew the truth. There was no heaven waiting beyond the clouds. Only endless hunger. Only the gnashing void. On the 7th night, I stood in the middle of the field staring up at the sky. The clouds rippled, bulged, and broke apart. Pale light poured down, washing over me. I felt my feet leave the soil. The village was gone. My life was gone. My body was no longer mine. I rose into the sky, weightless, helpless, drifting toward the pulsing wound above. And as I ascended, I saw them. The others, suspended in the gloom. Their faces blank, their eyes wide and empty. They reached for me with pale hands, mouths moving without sound. I joined them. We drifted in the darkness, forever falling upward into the maw of the silent God, swallowed whole by the endless sky. And below us the fields waited, quiet and empty, for the next harvest. Because the hunger never ends, and neither does the sky. Crazy Sea Stories.
The Cat in the Ashes. I never wanted the damn house. When my Uncle Henry passed, the lawyer called me up out of nowhere, said the old man left me his estate. Estate, my ass. It was just a rotting farmhouse out by the tree line near Wren County, Iowa. I hadn't seen Uncle Henry since I was maybe 12. I remembered him as a wiry old bastard with yellow teeth and the smell of pipe tobacco stuck to his clothes. The lawyer told me I had to go sign some papers, maybe stay a night, check the property before transfer. It's in your best interest, he said. He didn't sound like he believed that himself. So I drove out there in my busted Chevy, through miles of empty fields, no cell signal half the time. The house came into view right before sunset. Gray wood, slanted porch, a few boards missing from the roof. Looked like it was holding its breath, waiting to fall apart. When I stepped inside, the air hit me like old dust and burnt oil. The floorboards creaked like they remembered footsteps that weren't mine. And then I saw it. Sitting by the cold fireplace, eyes gleaming gold like tiny lanterns. A cat. Didn't flinch when I walked in. Didn't meow. Just stared. Guess you came with the place, huh? I muttered. It blinked slow, like it understood. First night, I couldn't sleep. Wind rattled the shutters, and the damn cat wouldn't stop pacing at the foot of my bed. I tried to shoo it out, but every time I closed the door, I'd hear it scratching from the hallway. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to this sound, like a voice whispering under the floorboards. Couldn't make out words, just this low, dragging murmur like someone talking through water. I froze listening. The cat lifted its head, ears twitching, staring right at the floor. Then it looked at me. That was the first time I got that feeling. Like it wasn't just a cat, like it knew something I didn't. By morning, I was running on caffeine and nerves. Found an old diary on the kitchen counter, half burnt. Belonged to Uncle Henry. Most pages were smeared with ash, but I could read a few lines. It won't stay in the walls anymore. The cat watches. Fire keeps it back. The basement door was nailed shut. That was the first real red flag. The nails were black, like they'd been burned. I tried prying one out with a screwdriver and the metal hissed like it was hot. I jerked back, dropped the damn thing. That night I heard something moving down there. Slow scraping, dragging. The cat sat by the door, tail flicking side to side, its eyes reflecting the candlelight. I whispered, "What the hell is down there?" The floor creaked once, then silence. I swear I heard a whisper behind me. "Don't open it." When I spun around, nobody there. Just the cat, still watching. Next few days, the smell started. Faint at first, like burnt hair. Then stronger. I checked every room, every outlet, but nothing was on fire. Still, every night I'd wake up choking on the stench. The cat stopped eating. It just sat by the window, staring into the cornfield. One night, I followed its gaze. Out there in the dark, something was moving between the stalks. Tall, black, shifting wrong like smoke trying to remember how to walk. And then I heard that whisper again. This time clearer, almost human. "Feed it fire." I found the jar in the attic. Waxed shut, wrapped in cloth, stinking of kerosene. Inside something red. Could have been candle wax, could have been something else. I didn't want to know. There was another note from Henry taped to the rafters. If it gets out, burn it all. That night I dreamed of the cat, standing on my chest, whispering in a voice that wasn't a voice. It's hungry again. When I woke, there was soot on my hands. I couldn't take it anymore. I ripped the nails out of the basement door. The wood groaned like it didn't want to let go. The air that came out was cold, wet. I went down with a flashlight, the cat padding behind me. There were burn marks all over the concrete floor, circles, symbols, and a pile of ash in the middle. The beam of my light shook. I swear the ash was moving, breathing. Then the cat hissed, low and guttural, a sound I didn't know cats could make. Something started rising from the ashes. A black, smoky shape with bones showing through. A smell like roasted meat filled the air. I ran. I didn't stop till I was outside. But when I turned, the windows of the farmhouse were glowing red. I tried to drive. The truck wouldn't start. The fields were whispering, I swear to God, whispering my name. When I looked back, the house was on fire. The cat was sitting in the doorway, calm as ever, flame reflecting in its eyes. I yelled for it to run. It didn't move. Then I saw the shape behind it. Tall, crawling out of the flames, black and grinning through a face made of ash. The cat looked at me once. Then it stepped back into the fire. They found me 3 days later, wandering the road, half burned and babbling about the cat. No one believed a damn word. The farmhouse was nothing but cinders. They said no animal bodies were found. But last night I heard scratching at my motel door. And this morning when I woke up, there was a single paw print in the ash on my nightstand. Still warm.
Crazy Sea Stories. If you like these stories, subscribe for more.
The Last Light in Bramwell. The lamp in the window swayed slightly, casting its trembling glow over the cramped study. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of ancient parchment, and something else, something that smelled faintly of damp earth. At the center of the room sat Elias Bramwell, a man well into his final years, hunched over a battered desk that seemed as old as he was. His skin was parchment thin, pulled taut over sharp bones, and his eyes, milky but piercing, were fixed on a small leather-bound book that trembled in his hands. The bulb above his desk flickered, but it wasn't the only source of light. There, in the heart of the book, a faint golden glow pulsed like a living thing, illuminating the frail man's face with a soft, almost reverent warmth. He read in a whisper, his cracked lips forming words that hadn't been spoken aloud for centuries. From the shelves, hundreds of books leaned toward him, their spines cracked, their pages curling, as though eager to listen. Elias had lived in this study for most of his life, venturing out only to collect more volumes. The villagers spoke of him in hushed tones. The Keeper, they called him. No one could quite say what it was he kept. But Elias knew. Every book in this room was a prison. It began when Elias was a young man, wandering the edges of the northern moors. There he stumbled upon the ruins of a monastery swallowed by fog and moss. In the center of its crumbling chapel was a single black lectern, and upon it, a book, bound in pale, leathery skin. The moment he opened it, something woke inside him. He heard a voice, not in his ears, but in the marrow of his bones. It told him its name, though the sound of it burned and twisted in his mind. It promised him knowledge beyond imagining, if only he would feed it. From that day on, he hunted, not for animals, but for words. The book, the Codex of Names, taught him how to trap souls in ink. The trick was in the last breath. As life left a body, you spoke a binding phrase and wrote the victim's full name. The letters would burn themselves into the page, and the book would sigh with satisfaction. At first, Elias captured vermin, then stray dogs, then the dying in hospice wards. But the Codex grew hungrier. Its pages demanded men, women, children, anyone with a name and a voice. And Elias, hungry for the wisdom it offered, obeyed. Years turned into decades. Elias no longer left Bramwell House except under moonless skies, when the hunger in the books became unbearable. The shelves swelled with more than 100 volumes, each one humming faintly, like a beehive in the dark. But the Codex glowed. Every time Elias read from it, that light would spill over the desk, warm and golden. It was not the harsh, sickly white of electric lamps. It was alive, soft, almost maternal. And it spoke. Tonight, it was speaking again. "One more, Elias," it whispered. "One more, and I will give you the name of death itself." Elias's hands shook. He was old, so very old, but the promise of knowing death's true name sent a thrill through him. He could command it, perhaps even bargain with it. He began turning the pages, each one crammed with names written in his hand. The glow deepened, and shadows on the walls writhed as though they were listening. It was nearly midnight when the study door creaked open. The hinges screamed, though he had oiled them only last week. A girl stood there. Pale skin, dark hair, no more than 10 years old. She was barefoot, and her nightgown was soaked as though she had walked through rain. Though outside the night was dry. Her eyes were black, not the dark brown of deep irises. Black like ink. "Grandfather," she said softly, though Elias had no children, no family. "The book is waiting." She crossed the room in silence, her bare feet leaving wet footprints on the wooden floor. She stopped beside him and placed her small hands on the codex. The glow flared. "Write," the voice commanded. Elias dipped his quill, his fingers aching. "What is the name?" he asked. The girl smiled, and her teeth were too many. "Your own." He froze. The codex's light grew unbearably bright, and the whisper in his bones became a roar. He felt his chest tighten, his lungs refusing to fill. The quill in his hand moved without his will, dragging sharp, inked letters across the page. Elias Bramwell. As the last stroke was made, the golden light did not fade. It collapsed inward, like a star folding into itself. He felt his skin pull tight over his bones. His breath turned cold. The study went silent. The girl was gone. On the desk sat the codex, its cover warm to the touch, its pages still faintly glowing. Elias's name pulsed once, then stilled. From the shelves, the other books began to hum. Elias tried to stand, but he could not feel his legs. In fact, he could not feel his body at all. He was aware only of darkness and the smell of paper and the faint vibration of countless whispers. He realized then he was inside the codex. The voices around him were the others, all the names he had written. They called to him, clawed at him, demanded he explain why they had been stolen. He screamed, but no sound came. His voice was just another whisper now, trapped forever between two covers, his fate sealed in ink. The codex rested quietly on the desk, its glow dimming to a faint ember. Hours later, when the first morning light slipped through the window, the lamp swayed gently, though there was no breeze. The pages of the books shifted as if in anticipation. The codex waited. It would always wait, because somewhere out there, someone would find it again. The codex rested quietly on the desk, its glow dimming to a faint ember. Hours later, when the first morning light slipped through the window, the lamp swayed gently, though there was no breeze. The pages of the books shifted as if in anticipation. The codex waited. It would always wait, because somewhere out there, someone would find it again. And when they did, they would feel the warmth of its glow, hear the voice in their bones, and open it, just as Elias had. And the shelves would hum once more.
Crazy Sea Stories.
The Man on the Edge. The fog had been there for as long as anyone in town could remember. It rolled in at twilight, swallowing the cliffs and valleys until the world became a blurred canvas of gray and shadow. The locals had their legends about the fog stories whispered over fires, muttered in half-joking tones in the tavern, or prayed away in trembling voices when it seeped too thick around their homes. But no one climbed the cliff after dark. except for Jonathan Hale. He stood at the edge now, a black silhouette against the pale glow of the moon that strained through the veil of mist. His coat flapped faintly in the wind, though the air itself was unnervingly still. From a distance, he looked like a statue, motionless, carved from the very rock itself. And perhaps, in a way, he was frozen not by fear, but by fascination. For 3 nights in a row, Jonathan had been pulled back to this place. The first time he had seen it, the fog seemed to breathe. He swore it pulsed, expanding and contracting like the lungs of some immense, slumbering creature. Standing at the cliff's edge, he felt the ground vibrate faintly beneath his boots, like the heartbeat of something buried deep below. And then he heard the whisper. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. Just a thin thread of sound, curling up from the abyss beneath the cliff. A voice that wasn't quite human, nor entirely alien. It spoke his name. Jonathan. He had stumbled back in shock, his pulse thundering in his ears. Yet despite the primal urge to run, something in that whisper clung to him. It wasn't calling him to flee. It was asking him to listen. That night, when he finally managed to sleep, he dreamt of the cliff. Only this time, he wasn't standing on it. He was falling. And as he fell through the endless fog, he felt cold, clammy hands reaching up from below, hundreds of them brushing against his skin, pulling him down deeper, deeper. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. But when morning came, the dream didn't feel like just a dream. The following evening, Jonathan tried to resist. He stayed inside, bolted the windows, and poured himself glass after glass of whiskey to drown the restless pull inside his mind. Yet when the grandfather clock struck midnight, he found himself standing in the mist once again. His coat hastily thrown over his shoulders, his boots crunching against frost-bitten grass. He didn't even remember leaving his house. This time, the fog was thicker. He could barely see his own hands stretched in front of him, but he could feel the cliff ahead, as if the earth itself were guiding him forward. And again, he heard the whisper. Closer now. Stronger. A chorus of voices layering over each other, like 100 people murmuring just out of sight. His name slipped from their phantom tongues, stretched and distorted. Jonathan. His breath trembled in his throat. Who's there?
He called into the void. The voices paused. And then, laughter. Not joyous laughter. Not even cruel laughter. But hollow, empty laughter. Like bones clattering in the dark. Jonathan stumbled back, his heart hammering. But his feet wouldn't carry him away. They remained rooted to the ground as though the soil itself had risen to clutch his ankles. Then he saw it. For the first time, something moved in the fog. Not a person. Not an animal. Something that shifted unnaturally, slithering like smoke, folding and unfolding into shapes that should not exist. A head where no head should be, limbs bending the wrong way. Faces, yes, faces forming in the haze, only to dissolve again in silence. The fog wasn't hiding something. It was something. Jonathan ran that night. He tore himself from the cliff, sprinting until his lungs burned, the whispers chasing him all the way home. But the laughter never left his head. By the third night, Jonathan wasn't fighting it anymore. He knew he would return. There was no alcohol strong enough. No lock sturdy enough to keep him away. The whispers had embedded themselves inside him, coiling around his thoughts, drawing him back like a moth to flame. This time, when he reached the cliff, he didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the edge, stood tall against the pale glow of the hidden moon, and waited. The fog parted, just slightly, and he saw them. Figures standing in the mist below, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all facing upward, all staring at him. Their eyes were pale, empty voids, reflecting the moonlight like dead glass. Some were clothed in rags, some in rotting finery. Others were naked, their flesh riddled with dark, festering wounds. They raised their arms in unison, beckoning. Jonathan's breath caught in his throat. What? What do you want from me? He whispered. The answer came not in words, but in sensation. His bones ached, his veins burned, his mind twisted as visions poured into him, visions of others who had stood where he now stood. Men, women, children, all lured to the cliff across centuries. Each one drawn by the whispers. Each one stepping forward into the fog. The fog fed on them. It remembered them. And now, it wanted him. Jonathan's body moved without his consent. His foot slid forward, pressing against the loose stones at the edge of the cliff. The wind, or what he thought was wind, wrapped around him. But it was hands, cold, unseen hands, stroking his arms, urging him closer. He fought. God, he fought with every last shred of willpower, digging his nails into the cliff's edge until blood spilled from his fingertips. But his strength was nothing against the pull. He leaned forward. The fog opened beneath him like a mouth. And then he fell. The air rushed past his ears, but there was no sound. No scream left his throat. The fog swallowed all of it. He felt himself suspended, drifting downward as the pale faces rose to meet him. Their arms caught him gently, almost tenderly, pulling him into their embrace. And in that moment, he understood the truth. The cliff wasn't a place. It was a threshold. The fog wasn't a mist. It was a hunger. And Jonathan Hale wasn't the first to fall. He would not be the last. When the villagers climbed the cliffs days later, searching for him, they found no trace of Jonathan. Just his coat, neatly folded on the ground at the very edge. But some swore that on foggy nights when the moon bled faintly through the mist, they could see him standing there, motionless, watching. His silhouette etched against the sky. Not alive, not dead, something else. And if you listen closely when the fog drapes over the world, you might hear it too. The whisper, calling your name.
Crazy Sea Stories. If you like these stories, subscribe for more.